Okay, so today we're going to do a dedicated video on how to clean a chassis. Now when I say how to clean, I mean how to clean the way that I do it. You may have a different method, but this is the way that I do it. So this is the first of 5 chassis that I'm going to be featuring here shortly in a quote-unquote repair-a-thon. I picked up 5 chassis from a guy online, and some of them, none of them are known as working. All of them are complete except for one that's missing the flyback. So for all I know, they could all work, except for the one missing the flyback, of course. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to get myself into with that. But those will be the next series of videos, the 5 after this one. You'll see how that turns out. But for this video, we're going to do a dedicated how-to on washing the chassis. So this is a 19-inch K7000 with the small 7-pin skinny neck version of the neck board. And it's filthy. Now it has been worked on before. It's got the HOT's been replaced. It's got a cap kit. Somebody has done the rework on R103 here. If we look at the bottom, someone's got the little jumper here. So someone's done some rework on it. The HOT got butchered when they replaced it, so they put little jumper pads. And overall on the bottom, it's not too bad. That's about the only butchery is right here. And then the R103, they put a little wire here for the mod. I put a big jumper, solder jumper across their solder bridge. But anyway, so yeah, it's not too bad, but the top is just filthy. Oh, look at that, service by P&L. When you see service by P&L, I cringe a bit. This is bent down slightly. We'll bend that up. Okay, but I mean, otherwise, yeah, let's just get this clean. So you can see here, I mean, just how filthy this thing is on a before type of deal. Stay out of here, you stupid anode wire. It's pretty nasty. So we're gonna get this in the deep sink, and we're going to clean it. And obviously someone has replaced the shutdown pot, so we'll have to make sure that's adjusted properly to the 9.8 volts it should be. Now I do want to mention that if possible, you want to kind of wash the neck board separately. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the neck board from the chassis, the main chassis here. Disconnect that, disconnect that, disconnect this. And we're going to have to pop this open here. You want to avoid getting the neck board just doused in water, because if a lot of water gets down inside the focus assembly here, it can corrode the focus plates. There's a plate on one side and a plate on the other side. There's a spark gap in there for your focus. And those plates can corrode and cause all kinds of problems with your focus, and you don't want that to happen. So we're just going to remove the neck board so we can wash the neck board separately and not get it all doused in water. This is going to prove somewhat difficult, but we're going to do it here, by golly. We're going to pop this side off, and then this side. There we go, and kind of bend that out of the way. Now we can desolder our focus wire, and that should free up our neck board. Oh, no, I lied, the ground wire here. Let's get that off of there. Man, that is stuck in there. Gonna have to resort to extreme measures here. Nope, that won't work. All right, hang on, I'll be right back. Okay, I had to kind of call out the big guns here. This is a bit rusted. There we go. Okay. All right, so that should be free now. Okay, now we can clean this thing up separate. So I like to, if necessary, we can just go through with the brush and clean this up as best we can without having to wash it. That's ideal. Without having to get this wet would be the best way to go about cleaning this. I don't want to breathe this stuff in, but so, I mean, you really don't need to clean. You don't need to really douse this in water unless it's just super absolutely filthy. And if so, you want to avoid getting it like, you know, just dousing it with water. You want to try and spray it with some cleaner and use the brush and air it off without having to get a lot of water deep inside the neck socket. So my recommendation is to physically remove the neck board from the main board if you can, and then just clean it up. Just knock all the dust and dirt off with a brush and use some compressed air, and then you don't have to actually get it wet. So that's my recommendation on that. But for the main board, we're going to take this over to the deep sink and do a job on this that will make this look brand new. So here we go. Well, here we are in the deep sink, and the first thing to do is get the water nice and hot and just let it run and douse the chassis. So we are going to do that. It's already pre-warmed, so we'll just turn it on. And we'll zoom in here a bit so you can see. And just let it run over everything and clean it off. If you have a sprayer, you can move to spray mode and just spray it down. If you don't, just let the water run, you know, normally like so. Okay, then we'll turn it off, and I like to use Simple Green, but at the moment, of course, the way logistics work out, I don't have any, so we're just going to use some of this Dawn Power Wash. I mean, any kind of spray cleaner you can use is fine. It just make sure it's not like corrosive or abrasive or something like that, but just a regular standard cleaner will work, or a degreaser or something like that, and we can just spray some of this on here. And I'm running out. That's the way it goes. But that should be enough for what we need to do. Not very professional, but you get the idea. Okay, so now let's get our brush wet. Okay, now we can just kind of go to town on this. And you want to be careful. You don't want to get too rough with this, because you can break components loose and knock them loose and break their solder joints and things like that. That will be a bad situation. You'll have to repair those, and you'll fight and spend time trying to troubleshoot. Hey, why is this not working now? Because it worked before, now it's not. Well, because when you were cleaning, you knocked a component loose and you cracked the solder joint and you didn't know it or weren't aware of it. So you have to kind of be careful here and not go too rough. Just nice and easy. Make sure we get down in here, back in here in this way. Just a nice brushing here. Okay. Get down with your bad self. Get down in there. Grab you C36 in there. All right, I think that'll work. Okay, then the back side is fairly clean already, but we can just go ahead and give it a dusting here. This is just a little 1-inch bristle brush. You can get them in any hobby store, things like that. Okay, now we'll give this a wash again. And yeah, we're still got some dirt clinging to life here around the P447, but that it's not surface dirt, it's a bit more stubborn here. And it doesn't have to be flawlessly perfect, but I mean, you're here, it's already wet, you might as well, get your mind out of the gutter. Get your mind out of the gutter. Let's just move on. All right, that's better. All right. Well, there you have it. Squeaky clean. And we'll get some better angles and light when we get it back under the light of the overhead from the test bench. But one of the problems we have here is that there's residue. When it dries off, you end up with residue. Let me grab. So after you get this washed and done, you want to use some compressed air, obviously, to blow all that water out. You know, if you don't have compressed air, you can let it sit at an angle like this till all the water drains down and dries. But for me, I like to use compressed air, more specifically air from a little blower device, like for detailing cars that I use. So let me grab that and I'll blow all this water off, and then I'll show you what happens when there's residue on here. Okay, so in my case, I'm impatient. I've got one of these Pro Blow things that I use for detailing my cars, and you just turn it on. It's like a big motor in here that throws air at this thing. So I like to use this to get all the water off. So here we go. It's going to be loud, so I may edit this part of the audio out, but you'll see how I use this in action here. Okay, so just like that, all the water is gone, and this thing is, well, I don't say all the water's gone, but it's dry now. This is dry, and there is going to be some residue on the bottom, but I'll show in a minute. But part of the reason I use the compressed air is to make sure that everything is secure, and just using the compressed air, I keep saying compressed air, in this case it's not compressed air, but you get the idea. You can use any kind of, air from the shop, or a compressed air in a can, whatever you want to use. But part of the benefit of doing that is now I can see what components are loose. And the R105 thermistor here is loose. We can see the thermistor is loose. If we look at the solder joint, oh, it's not just loose, it's broken out completely. Look at this. The thermistor is completely broken out of the circuit. So I didn't notice that originally, but I found that through using the air. The air was wobbling it around, and it's broken out completely. So we'll have to fix that. And then R89, look at this guy. R89 is, like I say, I don't think I did this with the brush, but that's what's important, is you want to make sure that you don't cause issues like this using the brush. But it is knocked completely. Oh no, the solder joint's completely gone. Look at that. So yeah, this can help you find issues as well, cleaning these things up. But now let's talk about the residue. So there's not really a lot of residue on the top. As you can see, this is pretty clean, and there's not much issue with residue on the top side. But the bottom side, look at the bottom side here. we got all this moisture residue on here from the cleaning process. See all this? This is something you're going to see when you're doing this, and you know, it gets pretty bad in some spots, especially down here. All this stuff here, this is like that dirt residue from washing it that is left on here after you dry it with that air. And you don't tend to have this problem as bad as you do if you just leave it sit there and let the water evaporate, but I'll show you an easy way to clean this. Also, it's not a good idea to wash these and just let them sit with water in them. I mean, like I say, you can set them here if you don't have any air and just let it sit like that and let the gravity air dry and things. But it's generally not a good idea to do that because water can sit down inside the width coil. It can sit inside underneath the flyback or under the filter cap, and it can cause corrosion. So you don't want that to happen. You want to blow it off to the best of your ability. Okay, now as far as this residue on the bottom side, get yourself some isopropyl alcohol and just douse it with isopropyl alcohol. Okay. Then you go through here with the brush, clean it off. There we go. Then we can use our air again. Well, that didn't work. It's kind of worse than it was before. Then you can take your brush one more time. It's kind of an intricate process that you learn over time. You use the air to blow it dry. You're like, oh, well, that's even worse than it was before. But, you know, don't act too quickly because your brush can still save the day. And there you go. So, yep. No more residue on the bottom here. And yeah. So, need to work this a bit more here on this side. It's not always perfect first time out of the gate. You got to do a little manual cleanup, but we're going to go through all this again when we do the reflow and the cap kit and stuff. May not need a cap kit, but you know what I mean, because we'll have to go through here and clean all this up anyway after the flux residue, but this gives you a good baseline to really kind of start with. And it may not be perfect first time, first attempt. Throw a little more alcohol on there, clean it up. And I think we'll just let that air dry. I mean, I won't use the air from the this thing, the ProBlow, because that dries it off too quickly. If you just let it sit there in the air and let the alcohol do its job, then you don't end up with as much of that residue as you normally would. So yeah, I think that's pretty good. So that's my method. You saw it there, and let's get it back under the light of the overhead and go through it and see the end result with some more light. Okay, back on the bench now, and we can take a bit of a closer look with some more light. And I mean, as you can see, it's quite a difference compared to how it was before. You know, if you want to clean the cables, the anode wires and other stuff, you can. I kind of glossed over that, but I mean, yeah, nice and clean. And that's the way that I do it. Your method may vary, but this is the method that I use that provides the most success. And you can get to work on it right away. You don't got to wait forever and hours and overnight for it to dry. Now, water, you cannot just cap it and turn it back on immediately after an hour of getting it wet, because I guarantee there will be water underneath the filter cap and underneath the flyback. Even though you use the compressed air, I still would wait, a number of hours before you try and attempt to turn it on. Even using the compressed air, because you're gonna have, especially if you don't do a cap kit, because you're gonna have water underneath. You're gonna have water underneath caps, flyback, things like that, underneath the. I forget what this C62 component is. I think it's a filter. There's going to be water under there. So even though you use the compressed air, you're still going to have water in spots. So it's still a good idea to wait 24 hours before you power it up, even when you use the compressed air, just as a safety measure. So, yeah. And I do want to get this fixed. So that'll be the next video, will be the repair on this one. So those of you watching in the future, it'll be linked down below. Those of you watching when it goes live here, you'll have to wait until... If you're watching this video, you'll have to wait till that video is live. I'll link it down below. If you're watching this as this premieres, you'll have to wait till that video comes out. That's what I meant to say. So, all right, now that's the main chassis. The neck board, you can just take a little alcohol here and just kind of, well, here, let's get rid of this backing material. And you can just take a little alcohol and spray it on here if you want. The alcohol will evaporate and you don't have to worry about getting the neck board wet. And you don't have to worry about corroding your focus plates. And the good thing about this is you can just let the alcohol air dry, and then you'll have a nice clean neck board and you won't have to worry about damaging the focus plates. And then we can just set this aside and let it air dry. The alcohol will evaporate. And if it's super, super dirty, you'll have to, give it 2 or 3 attempts here. But after that, it should be fine. And if you absolutely must rinse it in the sink or get it wet, do so very liberally. Don't get a lot of water down in the socket. So that's my advice. And there you go. Freshly cleaned K7000, and you can apply this method to any chassis. It doesn't have to be just the K7000, but that's the method that I use and what provides me with the most success. So hopefully you learned something. Take everything I say with a grain of salt, because every situation is different. So that being said, thank you very much. Like, share, and subscribe. And once the video is live of the repair of this one, I'll come back to this video and link it down in the description. Until then, stay tuned and we'll see how this turns out.